Welcome to Season 2 of Under the Sisterhood. Over the 31 days of March, we are celebrating 31 Women's March of Voices during Women's History Month. We will have intimate conversations that will uncover each woman's superpower and find out how they use these superpowers to help other women. That's 31 days honoring 31 women and their superpowers. This is a podcast to celebrate women and all that they do in our world. I'm Elizabeth Elfenbein. Let's get under the hood. Today, we're celebrating Pooja Sinha, all the way from New Delhi, India. Pooja is a mother, daughter, wife, people person, language coach for children and women, an erstwhile corporate leader, women's soft skill trainer, German educator. She has an MBA in finance, and she's an entrepreneur and the founder of English with Pooja Sinha. She is currently engaged in mentoring children and women across India, the largest democracy in the world for English as a life skill. Her endeavor is to instill oozing confidence in children and women through the medium of the universal language of love. I am so thrilled to be celebrating Pooja during Women's History Month. Welcome, Pooja.
Thank you, Elizabeth. The feeling is so mutual because when I got to learn about your platform of connecting women across the world with so much of love as well as audacity, if I may say, I was thrilled to be part of it because this is a platform that honestly I was dreaming about. After, hitting the milestone of 40, I realized that I want to connect with more women across the world because there's one thing that we all share together, that's compassion and love. And here I get a platform to experience. So thank you for having me over.
Oh, wow. Thank you for your generous, kind, and just, I think, really articulate words in terms of around what we're doing from your perspective. So I'm so happy that we are fulfilling on your dream and we are connecting. And when I met you a few weeks ago, when Barty introduced us, I left the conversation very, very inspired, and I wanted to hear your story and I wanted to celebrate you. You've done so much in your lifetime. So why don't we get going?
Sure, Elizabeth. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I was this not so little girl, brown girl, if I were to say, born to to a pair of very beautiful couple. So I'm their first daughter, and followed by a gorgeous-looking sister. I was born and bred in New Delhi, and lived in a joint family initially. Um, Came across a lot of girls in my colony that I would connect with, and we would play games on the road, games in the park, and make every day fun. But little did I know that when you hit college, reality, starts hitting you, and you get conscious about your career. So I started to work actually when I was in college first year, and my natural love for even back then was connecting with children and educating them. Needless to say, there was a little pocket money that I was getting, and I was leveraging having the pocket money and also, enjoying the snacks around in the corner, around my college. Then I got my corporate job in right when I was 20, and my college results were not out. And that was really the exposure to the corporate world. As I told you, I've done my master's in German. So they sent me to Austria, which was a big milestone for a girl, born to, I would say, an average family, and going to Austria, getting exposed to the culture, working there. So that was like huge celebration. It was like a celebration that we have, in
wonderful.
India. So literally they were beating the drums into
That's wonderful. They should have been. That's wonderful, though. And that's wow. I just want to interject one thing. That's so brave of you. So were you 20 when you went over to Austria? How old were you?
Yes, in the year 1999. Yes, I was 21 to be precise, about 2021.
I mean, that's a huge thing to leave your country having not left your family. And so, yes, you were in university, but to leave your country like that. And how long were you over in Austria?
I was there for 4 months. I don't know
Mm.
where did that confidence come from, Elizabeth, where what I used to do as a child, actually, naturally, I used it when I started to connect with people around the world. So I didn't know that here I'll see such wonderful, huge, tall Austrians, and I'll just go to them and start conversing with them. Exposure to coffee, Elizabeth, came when I went to Austria. Can you imagine exposure to hot chocolate? We used to have, but they were like these, really, what do you call, luxurious drinks for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there we had this vending machine. Whenever you wanted to, sip a coffee or a hot chocolate was generously available. So those
You
little
liked
things.
your vending machines, your little treats. Yeah, no, it's amazing. So 4 months over in Austria at 21. Wow. Yeah, and you described yourself. We described you as a people person, so it all makes sense that you like to connect with humans. So with,
Yeah,
of
I
course, with
love to connect with humans, and that has also helped me, Elizabeth, and that kind of excites me naturally. So I think I was a born extrovert, but little did I know that I could use that quality in connecting with people and probably offering them what I have and what I could learn from them. So it came to my surprise, Elizabeth, that I was working and I was trying to do my best. Not that I really slogged, but I did my best in whatever hours I could offer to the organization. And after 2 months, again, I get a little surprise that you have been awarded a Marks and Spencer's gift voucher.
Mm, that's wonderful.
you know, now it's so easily available but for that time, having a Marks and Spencer was quite an honor for me. So I continued my journey in the same organization, Elizabeth, for 7.5 years. And it offered me so much. I would say it was my working MBA, master's
Yes, I love that.
in treating people, in understanding the people. And that's where I also got exposure to working with the US, working with people in the US, their culture, working with Austria, their culture, and working with Dublin and learning. And at the end of the day, everybody's same, by the way. All they want is honesty and good work. My team kept growing during the process. I was getting a lot of recognition. In the process, Elizabeth, I got married. I had one daughter by the time I was in my first organization. But if I may tell you, one of the challenges that I wish somebody had shared with me, I was a naive mother. You're not a born mother, isn't it? It's on the job. You learn on the job. No matter how many books you read. So I was a very aggressive worker, Elizabeth, physically. I work for 12 to 14 hours continuously in the
Mm,
office, even during my pregnancy, Elizabeth. I was driving, and India has great traffic. You know that, right?
yeah, yeah.
Massive traffic, and I was driving, and I was doing big exhibitions, road shows for my company. You know what happened as a result? I had a preterm child.
Mm.
My daughter was born at week 33.
And how
And
many
that's
pounds? How
where
many
I
was?
wish, Elizabeth,
Mm-hmm.
somebody would have, told me that take it easy for these few months, because I still have an impact of that in my life, you see.
Yeah.
She Every weekend I was at the doctor's with her because she had very low immunity. So that was one of my challenges. Nonetheless, women being women, they don't give up easily, you know the ball kept rolling. And when I went to another organization where I worked for about 2.5 years and got exposed to London and how do they work there. My team increased exponentially. So about 12 years I was working in the corporate, and I had my second child there. And there due to my self-learning experience, Elizabeth, I, kind of, when the doctor told me to now hit the bed and say, you need to do a bed rest, I, did, and the delivery was good. But the impact sometimes of certain incidences in your life never go off.
So I want to just say something. So first of all, you're not alone in that. You made the comment, and I think it's a really good observation for all women. You know,
Mm,
you can read all the books you want about being a mom, but it's something you learn on the job. So the same goes with being pregnant and carrying your
yes.
child. I worked the same craziness. It was my first child.
Ah,
she came, I just didn't stop working. And interestingly, I had spottings at 5 months. I was literally playing squash and I had
Oh
spottings. I
my
went running to
God.
the doctor because I thought I was going to lose my daughter. And I got hormones and everything was fine, but I kept going. I stopped playing squash, anything of impact, but I kept going until, and I did have an at term. In fact, she was a week late and she was a big baby. But I think the point is like, I didn't know any different. I think that like as a woman, I just naturally felt that my job was to continue to do my job well. And also because I was like, as a supporter of the family. So when she came, I needed my job. So I always felt that
Exactly.
it wasn't just that I was driven personally, motivated like for some sort of success. I was motivated because I had to help put a roof over our head and food on the table. So I think
Yes.
I think that it's really hard because women are so hard on themselves. Yes, we wish we could do some of these things differently. There are things I wish I could do differently. But I think that maybe now at your age, you said you hit 40, like,
I'm
give yourself
44 now, but something
44.
hit me at 40, whereby I thought I must prioritize myself, you
Well, I
know.
was just gonna say, give yourself grace for that because you did the best you could at the time. You
Yeah.
didn't know better. And then guess what? The beauty is you learned with your second daughter that, you know what, I'm gonna take it easier. But it's also really hard when you're in a job and you're doing really well. And here we are, we're carrying life inside us. And we just keep going because we don't really, especially your first pregnancy, you really don't know what you're up against. You're just sort of experiencing it in real time. So you're doing your job to keep everything going and you're just not as cognizant, like, especially when you're younger. So,
Exactly.
so I think that, give yourself
Yeah,
grace.
during your pregnancy, you have so many battles to win, you know.
Mm,
And
mm,
and as a woman, I honestly felt that I was proving it to everybody but myself.
mm.
You had your seniors to prove that you are no less than others just because you're pregnant, you know. You had your relatives to prove that please don't gain too much of weight,
Mhm,
isn't it? I mean,
mm,
honestly.
I
And
think
the
I put
person
that
that
on
you least
myself.
care for in your first pregnancy is you. So, I wish, we could actually, Elizabeth, offer these solutions to women who are in at least their first pregnancy about the things that they could do. We may not be doctors, but we have experience and live experiences of producing children for that matter, and the
I
impact
couldn't
that it
agree
has.
more. I couldn't agree more
Yeah,
that because you don't go in knowing what the pregnancy is going to be
you
like.
don't,
And I
yes,
think
absolutely.
I think having children, I mean, it's such a gift, but the actual physical experience of manifesting life inside yourself it's both a miracle, but you're going
It's a
through this
miracle.
physical change and the emotional change and your hormones and everything is it's sort of not what you're used to.
Not, you don't know what's going on inside your body.
Exactly. And
So,
so I think,
so, you know, 12 years I worked in the corporate, got great fame. And when I talked to you, I was taken aback to realize that I can resonate with your experience. I mean, you were also such a, you had such a lucrative career. And I thought I'm the only one who gave up, but you also did for a reason. And now you've started your own journey, individual journey. So it kind of, in our previous conversation, I was like, no, I'm not the only one. you
well,
know.
well, what's interesting about that, Pooja, is that, I'm a bit older than you. I was going to say quite a bit. Well, kind of quite a bit. What I like is that you're experiencing this sort of self-discovery now, like earlier
Yeah.
than me. I mean, it wasn't until 4 years ago, nearly five
Oh,
years ago, that I really started. I left a big corporate, I don't want to say corporate advertising, it left the advertising industry after 35 plus years in it.
my
And I was
God.
at the top. I was working, to your point, between my commute and the work. It was a 24/7, but I pretty much worked 12, 14-hour days. And at the end of the day, I lost, or I didn't really know who I was. And I think that that's
Precisely.
because you're so
Yeah.
busy, you're in the act of doing. So I think that
But,
that's an interesting,
and
thing.
you're in an act of doing multifold for multiple people.
Exactly.
And the person you least prioritize is yourself. But anyways, the journey is still, I'm still learning. So, when I worked for 18 years, 12 years in corporate full time, and 6 years in, a business house, part time. And when I started to work part time, Elizabeth, I started to connect with children, which was always my natural calling.
That's
Elizabeth, I
beautiful.
didn't know it was my natural calling back until a decade. I was hoping, I wish I had, but then destiny had something else in store. I wish I had started to connect with children ever since I was in college, and I would be at a different position. But that's probably, I wouldn't be what I am today if I hadn't experienced this journey also.
I couldn't, I want to stop you there. I
Yeah,
mean, if I were to say anything to women in this moment is you can't live in regret. You can only move forward. And you're
yeah,
absolutely right. You actually have more to offer women and children based on the experiences, your 12 years,
yes,
doing that in the corporate world, because you can bring a, multidimensional experience to your teachings. And so I think, and it's a
exactly.
very inspiring. So if you're just a teacher who teaches your entire life, which is a wonderful thing, please don't get me
Yes,
wrong, you're not going to have the
yes,
same experiences and lenses and perspectives on things. So I think that
yes.
you should honor that, because that's a
I would
wonderful
probably
thing.
not be talking to you so, clearly and so honestly, to be honest with you, if I didn't have that experience, because now you're driving something that's for women and that actually personally drives me, I want to share a few examples of a few women, Elizabeth, in India who I've recently connected. I mean, they're darlings. They materialistically they are fulfilled, they almost have everything that one desires for. But what they lack, Elizabeth, is contentment.
Mm, I think that you just struck a chord. Okay, keep going. When you finish this bit, I want to talk about that a
Yeah,
little.
they lack contentment because if they could be buying a dress for $100, or let's say 10,000 rupees, and they could be buying a dress for $10,000 and maybe 2 lakh rupees. I'm not even, calculating the currencies, but what I'm trying to say, that is momentary. And what I'm trying to do through the medium of English, Elizabeth, trying to scan their strengths, which
Mm,
probably because of people management experience that, with God's grace, I got, it comes naturally to me.
mm.
There are these women who I have who come to me who probably have the best of the cars, best of the houses, lovely husband, but they're missing that contentment. And what I want to drive with them, is find your calling. What is it that you can offer to the society in your own way? Please note, you don't have to be a Microsoft. You don't have to be, like the biggies in India or anybody in your small capacity. If you could influence a few people through your niche, some people are wonderful bakers, Elizabeth. Some could offer great fashion, advices. Some of them can help you start small businesses, but they don't know yet.
So can I tell you something about that?
Yeah,
It's a
please, my
really,
pleasure.
I think that is where, under the sisterhood, the work we're doing in our sister circles, and we're in the process of creating corporate workshops, is to also look at these women who lack contentment. I was one of them. I was at the very top of my field. I've won hundreds of
Yeah.
awards.
Yeah.
I had a beautiful home, acres, fancy cars, belonged to the best clubs, for
Yeah.
sports. I had everything. I had beautiful designer clothes, pocketbooks, everything. Like everything. Everything was beautiful, looked perfect to the external world. But my
Oh.
inside was not content. That's a good word. I was not content. I was not happy. And, I have
Mhm.
spent the past 4 years working on being at peace and content and really happy. And what
Nice.
I've done that I would say is worth thinking about is really looking within and finding myself. Because all of those material things, including a career, even if you're at the top, that's not who you are, that's what you do. And so I've been working on who I am. And
True.
I think that women get so caught up in doing, not
So
being,
caught
but
up in doing,
doing.
absolutely.
So whether it's their job, then they become mothers, their wives, their sisters, they're doing so much for everybody else that they don't really understand who they are. But they're very good, by the way, at doing all those other things. They're brilliant at it. And so I
They're
think
brilliant at
that,
it.
and I think that that's a really interesting, way to sort of think about it, is really looking within and doing that self-discovery and the self-care work. You talked about yourself, realizing now that I'm more of a priority. And I think it becomes easier as your kids get older, you can have more time to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an empty nester, so I have all the time to spend figuring out who I am. But I think the other thing I would offer, and then we'll get back to, is women going from doing to being. And it's not that you're going to stop doing, but it's really
Yeah.
walking a fine line and a balance of doing, because that's what we do, that we don't even sit and be until maybe we retire. And then we haven't, and we're figuring out at retirement age who we are, like, and then we really aren't figuring out who we are, because it's almost like, so I think that there's an interesting conversation there to be had.
Yeah. And Elizabeth, one thing, if I, I don't know if this is part of the subject, but I still want to put it to you, and I still want to put it to every woman who influences other women, is, this realization should happen prior. It should be happening in the second leg of your life or the third leg of your
I
life.
love it. I think you're spot on. Actually, can I just interject one more thing? I
Yeah,
think that
please,
is
my
brilliant.
pleasure.
So we, under the sisterhood, we have a great story, not quite like Barty's story, because Barty's
Mhm.
came by way of me finding her art multiple years ago and reaching out to her. But when we launched under the sisterhood, when we first started going out with podcasts, a young woman, Mohira Iktvar from Pakistan, 18 years old, reached out to
Mhm.
me on Instagram and reached out to
Wow.
us on Instagram. And she said, I love what you're doing. I want to be part of your team. So I
Wow.
scheduled a meeting with her. We did a podcast. She is brilliant, brilliant. And then
Wow.
I said to her, look, you want to be part of the team. Why don't you join as an advisor? Because we
Mhm.
need advisors that represent every woman around the world and at every age, because that's our mission. And so I said, why don't you go and think about what you can contribute? Because to be an advisor, you have to contribute something. She comes back
Yes.
2 weeks later and she says, I can contribute creating community and sisterhood. And so we started a sister circle. Now, this is where it comes in and aligns to what you're saying. 16 to 18-year-olds. Right now, I think we have 5 or 6 weekly every Saturday, although this week they're in exams. So we're going to do a
Yes, they
Christmas
have the
Eve.
exams going on. Yes.
So we start the sister circle, and we are literally taking these young, beautiful women through self-discovery to sisterhood, self-discovery, self-care, self-expression, and sisterhood through a series of sister circles, and they're loving it. They are literally, and our head of programming, Amy, is facilitating this, and it's fantastic. But the reason why I'm telling everybody about this is these young
Yes.
women, they are starting. I'm like, if I knew what what we're teaching you now, if I knew at
Exactly.
my age, I mean, I'm learning it in my late 50s. You're figuring it out
Yeah.
at 16 and 18. You're going to take the world on by storm.
Exactly. The world's going to be their oyster. If this is
Mm.
where, oh my God, I can't believe it. If this is where, like, can you imagine girls at 16 to 18? They're so confused. And if they have a platform to, I mean,
So
that's incredible. And I wish we could, and you're saying there are a few, but these few, it's the beginning. It's the
it's
beginning.
the beginning, and we'll talk after, but I'd like, if you have a group of young women, because
Yeah,
we will fund the facilitation, and we can talk about that.
certainly,
We'll talk
certainly.
about
I
that
would
after your
offer.
interview, but
Yeah.
because what I will tell you about these beautiful women, which you'll be so happy to hear as an educator, is that they're like leaving the conversation. We love this. You're so inspiring. And so some of them are talking that they struggle academically and that that
Yes.
they love being creative. And I said, when I was your age, I was not an academic student, but I had some art talents. I ended up going. And so I said, you have to think outside the box. Like I'm able to share with them experiences that, and they're like, wow, this is inspiring. So I attend all the sister circles with our facilitator because I want to get to know and sort of help
Wow,
mentor
that's
these young
incredible.
women. So it's just been really, honestly, it's so rewarding. I can understand why you love teaching, but anyway, back to
It's,
your
the
story.
other day, I don't know if I told you in my previous conversation, but I met a lady from Australia, and
Mm,
she was also a teacher, and she was, we were talking about teachers and the remuneration they get, which we all know how it is. And she said, look, Pooja, teaching is a labor of love.
I love it. Yes, it is.
Who can, who can actually remunerate love? It can't be remunerated if you
Mm,
look at it. And the blessings you get with it is substantial, much more than what you can even imagine.
I couldn't agree more. All of the beautiful things will not, like touching, every Saturday morning, it's usually 9 to 10 or 10 to 11. I leave. It's like my day is just made because of the hour I've
Ah,
spent with these young women. So anyway, so let's
lovely.
get back to your story. So,
Sure. Sure. So right now, I just want to tell you what am I doing. Basically, I am, again, as I said, I am quite engaged and actually charged about, instilling confidence in two sets of, individuals. One are the children from age 6 to 15, because I think that's the age I can influence them. And the second are women, who I believe can do so much more than that they believe that they could. So, kind of instilling confidence in them. Um, Currently, Elizabeth, I have about 50 families that I'm associated with
wow,
in India, because
wow.
that's the capacity I can take. I'm not, I can't be completely into it, and I don't want to do something. I want to enjoy it and do it. So
But 50
50
or
families,
15, 50, 50.
50.
Wow. I mean, if you think about that in terms of like multipliers, if you touch 50
Yes,
families and they touch, because you're raising the next generation, it's
yes.
like they touch the next and then I mean, it's the exponential effect, the growth and the trajectory of something like that is, as I said,
So I'll tell
exponential.
you
So,
the principles, if
mm,
I may, Elizabeth. Sorry. I always tell, I have a few principles. I don't have positions in my classes, in my programs. There's no first, second, third in my class. So from day one, I have told them there's no first, there's no second, there's no third. I want each one of you to be a better version of yourself. You know,
I love that. That's beautiful. It's
So
exactly
I
right.
know, and I mean it. I know there are a few kids who may learn what I want to tell them in a month or two. Few may take 4 months. That makes them no less, by the way. They've not given up. I love that. I respect that. And I tell them, and I know in my heart of hearts who's doing good. Or, this one's okay. This one has this particular trait that we can leverage on, and this one has another trait that we could leverage, but there is no first, second, third. So I told them there's no competition, there's no first, second, third, there's only love, and there's only you being a better version of yourself. You know what's the impact of that? All of them participate.
That's so beautiful. And it's just, I think it's so disarming because if all children around the world, and it doesn't matter if it's in India, honestly, or in America,
Yes,
teachers label, they're so interested in keeping control of the classroom that they
yes,
don't see all of the children. And so if you don't see all of your children and understand that everybody has different capacities, your job as a
exactly,
teacher is to bring out the brilliance in each of them. And just by
exactly.
saying that is you're not, makes them want to show up. I mean, just even because school can be a frightening experience. It can be one that shuts you down. I had that experience, or it can be one that opens you up to learning. And so that's beautiful. Well done,
See,
you.
if my mission is to instill confidence, Elizabeth, and if I'm going to bracket my kids, then am I not taking away the very fundamental of my program? you
Mm,
know? So I do that. Secondly, Elizabeth, innovatively, I try to make things very simple. I try. And that, I want real life application of my knowledge, experiential learning. So recently, I wish I could share some of the videos. You would also love it. But I
Mm.
had a nature walk activity in my community whereby I invited children to walk the nature, walk the park, and I am teaching them English.
Mm. That's
I
amazing.
loved it. So, for example, if I were to explain them what are twigs, what are withered leaves, what is
Mm.
a rugged pathway, I actually showed that to them. What's a colossal tree, you know? So,
That's
I
wonderful. What
had
a
a bunch
wonderful
of,
way. That must be, A, it's fun. You make it fun for them and,
yeah,
that visceral experience of just being out and about
yeah. I had
will help
20
ingrain
children,
it.
um,
Mm.
20 children coming up, for the show. I had my own children helping me out. And to my surprise, the most beautiful thing was there was a mother who offered, baking cupcakes for the children,
Mm.
you know. And there was another mother who wanted to be around her child. So I had along with the educational, stuff that I needed, I had taken some snacks also because it was like a picnic for us. So she helped me serve the kids. And I was like, wow, this is womanhood.
Oh,
This is
that's just,
precious. I didn't
oh,
ask them, they just volunteered.
that's so beautiful.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. So through
Mm.
my programs, I want to, add fun and because confidence, Elizabeth, somewhere we need our language skills also. Because I have worked and I have realized that there were people with such great subject matter expertise,
Mm-hmm.
but they couldn't express themselves. And that's where I learned that I wish one fine day I get an opportunity to, share this with women because women generally underestimate. They're always looking for certifications, they always need a yes from somebody.
Mm.
So why not? Why not? Like enjoy it and do it. No stress, just enjoy it and do it. And that's my endeavor.
Well, that's a wonderful, I mean, you're doing so much. It's so interesting. You're doing it in a way, you said, keep it simple. So it's so digestible. It opens people up who might find things that are more complicated, challenging to deal with.
Yeah.
So they shut down. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's making, by the way, that's making history. That's making history as a woman, going back and teaching and bringing your experiences to bear and doing it in a way that you recognize all of what children are and what they need. They need to be seen, they need to be heard, and they need
Yes.
to be celebrated, which is how you're teaching innately. That's just who you are. So that's beautiful.
You used two such beautiful words. They need to be seen and they need to be celebrated. So true. They need to be seen. They need to be seen in the sense that if they're in a room and there's a teacher with, a bunch of 10, 15 kids, they must know she knows me. She sees what I do. She reciprocates and in turn celebrated. Like there's a ceremony that whenever somebody gives me a nice, meaningful sentence, we applaud for them. There is no, there's not one fine day. Whenever this happens. So somebody clap for us. Imagine if somebody claps for us, Elizabeth, how do we feel even at this age? You know?
It feels good. Yeah, no, that's
Feels
wonderful.
great.
I think the celebration and the other thing about seeing, your students, but I think this is like a thing. I think seeing is, I mean, in your case with teaching children and women, but I think it's important to see humanity and see it
Yeah.
and recognize it. This person might have this challenge. If you see them and you listen and you
Yeah.
hear, you can maybe look at how do you help them solve, or how do you go about teaching. This person might struggle. So when you see them, you understand
Mm,
that. And so I think
yeah.
the lack of really seeing people's challenges is I think it's, if not only women, if women and men could do that across the board, I
Yes,
think it's a lot. I
certainly.
mean, it's going to be harder for men because that's not their instinct to see, because
Yeah,
that tends to be
compassion comes
empathy.
naturally to women, to be
Exactly.
very honest
Empathy
with
and
you.
compassion is more natural. Exactly. But your story is really amazing. I mean, and the children are so lucky to have you. I'm going to go on to the next question,
Please.
because I think this is a great question for you. What would you say your superpowers, plural, are? Because I know you have way more than one.
No, no, not really. You're just too kind and too humble and too sweet, and you're actually making me feel so comfortable. It doesn't even seem that we're, conversing for a podcast or we're having an interview, just as if, actually I'm talking to a friend. So I think it's so
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you. Well, so
I'm
what do you
really, I'm really grateful to you. Really.
Oh, I'm
Thank
really
you.
grateful. I'm grateful to have you here right now. So tell us what your superpowers are, and don't
So,
be, don't be, don't
it's
be
not an
humble.
easy question. Sorry,
Mhm,
Elizabeth. It's not an easy question, but
mm,
I have recently spent a lot of moments with my own self doing kind of solo travels. This is the only year, by the way, Elizabeth, I started solo travels. And the whole objective, yeah, and please, for us, this is a blessing when you do this. And I receive your blessings because I want to continue to do this. I love them. The reason I do it, Elizabeth, are two reasons. There are two reasons I do it. One, I love self-introspecting myself, and self-introspection comes from silence. You can't be, amidst chaos, amidst cacophony, and expect that you will self-introspect. You need silence, so it helps me self-introspect, and also it gives me my time to improve my work. I'll be very honest with you. I keep ideating in my mind. So when I did that, I even asked myself this question, Pooja, what can you offer to the world? What is it that, before you move on, what is it that you're going to do? And this one thing that I realized was that confidence, I think, probably is a quality we all are born with. So confidence, I believe, and I have realized that it's inborn. I in various challenges of my life, Elizabeth, I realized there is one thing that didn't go off from me was my confidence, irrespective of whether, I'll be very honest with you. I was ridiculed. I had a lot of pimples. I had a lot of acne.
mm,
And
mm.
I didn't let that, and I was literally told in my face as a teenager, about that. And I'm born in a family that has very beautiful girls, very beautiful, fair. And by the way, even in India today, everybody, most of the people, they celebrate fair skin.
I, well,
It's the truth of India. We
mm,
cannot take it away. So I was a brown girl with pimples, but even
mm.
that didn't let my confidence go because of my mother.
I just want to interject one thing. Just everybody, this audience should know Pooja is beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. I don't know what her sisters look like, but today she's beautiful. And, I know of others who've had acne challenges, and I know that is so devastating at a young
That's
age. So,
devastating.
yes. So
That
for
is.
you to, hey, listen, I've had it in adulthood due to stress and stuff. I've worked very hard to find ways to navigate that. So, but for you to going back to that superpower, the one superpower is confidence. That's brilliant.
Confidence, and I want to give all the thanks to my mother,
Mm,
the way she has brought up those qualities, the way she introduced me to everybody, and the pride that she takes even now in her daughters.
mm,
I think I get it from her, and I'm grateful to her. That's the biggest blessing that she's given me, which is confidence. It doesn't go, no matter what. It doesn't go. So once that, the second thing, Elizabeth, I thought when I learned, and why was I a people's person, and why do I like to connect with people, is I realized, Elizabeth, I have this somewhere, if I may say, a superpower. It's such a beautiful word. It makes you feel, so equipped. This word makes you feel so powerful. And that is, I have ability to scan people for their strengths, Elizabeth.
That's a very interesting way of putting it, scanning people for their strengths. So what does that look like? So give us an example of that. I think that's
I'll give you an
fantastic.
example. I'll give you an example. I have a friend. I have many friends, and even while I was working in gender, but I'll give a more recent example, you know, about how do I feel. So, there are these two, three friends of mine who always question me about why aren't they happy. And we have this conversation, very generous conversation. And I realized that one of them is she could be such a great fashion advisor. How? Only through a conversation. She didn't tell me. She knows how to get a product. She knows what will look good on Elizabeth, what will look good on Pooja, and just fashion for comfort. I'm not talking about walking the ramp, by the but that's her superpower. That's her strength. And I want to instigate her and encourage her to do that. The second one, she can't converse much. I feel she lacks right now. She's not got that exposure as well as that support from her society, from the people, from her inner circle, but she has the power to organize events,
Mm.
organize marriages, organize birthday parties, and she does it for leisure. Like, okay, it's your party, let me help you with the tent, you should have this for the menu, you should put your balloons like that, have this for the guests. But she could channelize it, isn't it? She doesn't
So it's
know this.
interesting. It's like she takes what she does naturally for granted. She doesn't put a value to it. And I think
Yes.
as you started that, I was thinking about a little bit about her lacking the confidence in a way, but maybe like she doesn't see the potential in what she could make of it. Because nobody's bringing that out in her. So what you're trying to say is,
Nobody.
I think that with my ability to scan people, I could help ignite that in her.
Ignite, that is the right word. Ignite that in
Mm.
her. And that's where, as you said, we're always doing. We're always doing it for others, but we are lacking contentment. So can't we join the dots?
I like that. That's a good one. So that's really, really good.
So, two things that, if I could give confidence to children and women through the medium of English, because I can write a chapter on why English is important. I'm not going to be talking about it because of my own experience and because of the charisma it's added to my life and the glory and the contentment it's added to my life. So, personally, I truly believe that. It still is the language of the universe. You can't take that away. It still is the language of the libraries. It still is the language of the big conferences that happen in this world. You can't take that away, you know? So I could instill confidence through the medium of language and I can help them recognize their strength.
That's beautiful. I feel like you've answered the last question, which is how do you help how do you use your superpowers to help other women? I mean, I think you kind of just said it, but if you were to answer that, how would you end that? Because I think that's just brilliant. Mm.
I'll be very honest, as I told you in the beginning of our conversation, I am known as a mirror in my society. I'm known as, like as clean. Be, I cannot be making up, So to be honest, I have attained the platform to instill confidence in children through the medium of my language skills or, my experience. And I think that can grow exponentially. But I would, I really want to reach out to more women. Honestly, I have not worked much on that platform, Elizabeth, and that's why I was very excited to be on your show, to be associated with you, where I can across the world talk to them and actually, as you use the word, ignite them to tell that you have the power irrespective of your responsibilities. Please note, no matter how many responsibilities you may have, I think you can convert that into, if not money, into contentment.
Oh, I like that, because I think you're absolutely right. I think that it's not about material wealth. It's about spiritual wealth, and that's contentment. And I think that
Yeah.
you just hit on something. Wow. I'm like, I have goosebumps. Because I think that if you can convert and help ignite women in many different ways that convert
Yes.
to contentment. And by the way, they might make
Contentment.
some money in the process.
They
They might make a
will. You
lot of
know
money,
what?
but even a lot of
Exactly.
money is not going to make them content. What will make them content is the process of feeling that confidence, the process of knowing and leaning into their power and knowing that they
Yes.
can do what they set their minds out to do.
You know what, Elizabeth? Money, I'll tell you, it will be a byproduct. It will come
I couldn't
naturally
agree
to them.
more. I couldn't agree more. And I
You
don't
know?
mean to, I think it's interesting, Pooja, because I don't think I like, I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money. I've made,
Same
you
here.
know, I mean, all I
Same
can say is
here.
money comes and money goes. But guess what? Nobody can take my intellectual capital, my ability to think, my ability to create, my ability to innovate, and my ability to be
So
hands-on if I
true.
need to, or strategic or high level if I need to. Nobody can take that away from me, but money can come and go. And money, money never defined me. I never cared about money. But when, you're raising a family, you have to help support
You
the
have
family. You want to give
obligation.
your kids a good education. You want to give them a nice home, all those things. Suddenly money becomes a little more important. What I've learned is that maybe back to, and I don't have regrets, I can't redo my life, but back to maybe having more time with my kids versus focusing on more work would have been a little better. So yeah, I had money, but you know what? I didn't have contentment. So I think you just hit on something.
You know, Elizabeth, can I share something about myself which got me, thinking when you were talking about your journey? When I left my lucrative job, which was paying me well,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the financial consequence was that I had taken a house on installments and on loan, and I had to sell that house because I couldn't afford to pay the installments anymore. I had primarily done it to spend time with my children. But my decision was questioned, except my husband and my mother. They were supportive of it. He was very supportive of it. He said, okay, we'll see. He's one of those, he says, if money has to come to you, it will come to you through me. But he was very supportive. But it was a question that I was asking my own self. Have I done the right thing by sacrificing so much of financial wealth? So much of glamour, Elizabeth. Dressing up really well, going out every day, hearing so many appreciations about yourself, more appreciations than, the limitations. So much of regard you get from the outer world. Today, Elizabeth, I have zero regrets because guess what? I have spent every moment of my life around them, managing my work, picking them up from school, celebrating their scholar badge ceremonies, being around when they were running cold and cough, and nobody can take that away from me.
Well, that's beautiful. And if that were that would be my regret. Yes, I took my kids to the emergency rooms. I made all their shows, most of them. I did miss a 13th birthday for Olivia. And unfortunately, her father put the ice cream cake on the heater and it melted, but she had a great skating party. I organized the whole thing, but I was on my way back on a red eye from California. But like I was so busy, like I can't get those moments back. Interestingly, the past 4 or 5 years, I mean, my kids always felt very loved, but I'm able to really give to them now. And they're all in different parts of the world. When my daughter's in Costa Rica, I visit her in Costa Rica. My son's in LA. My other daughter's in Philadelphia, but she travels. So I'm just trying to find, when I'm with them, the time is such quality. And I think it's beautiful that you made that decision. And I not only respect and admire it, I'm a little bit like, wow, so I think it's fantastic. Mm-hmm.
It took me 2 years to resonate with my own decision, by the way. Because I wasn't spending, I got conscious of the money, Elizabeth. It wasn't easy. Let me confess, let me put it on the table, as glorious as it sounds, that I couldn't spend money on myself. I didn't want to. Not that my husband didn't say, but he was also earning. He was also growing at that point in time. My mother, everybody offered, my sister, everybody, oh, if you want something with it. But I didn't have the, audacity to take it
I
from
could,
them. Luxurious, if you were to buy a nice shirt, or
mhm.
if you were to,
Same,
eat
yeah.
at a nice restaurant, you didn't want to spend that money because you had children. So that was confusion that I went through, Elizabeth. It wasn't easy. I had no counselor. I didn't know if I could go to somebody, because even going to a counselor needed money.
Mm. So
But
I just
then,
I want to leave you with one thought on that, though. I think that's
yeah,
very interesting. I think transitioning, and I'm having this conversation with other women as well, transitioning from this affluence, this career, this big position and status, like status, and it's status
status.
on multiple
Yeah.
levels, okay? You get the status on the job, you get the status in terms of what the way you live, all of that. It's a transition coming out of that for women. And it's something, it does take time, and we have to give ourselves grace and know that, you know what? There's a lot of learning. I mean, I made a decision too. I could still be in advertising making a lot of money. I made a decision that time was worth more to me than money. I have enough and I have beautiful things. I'm not buying beautiful things anymore, but I have all my beautiful things from the past that are timeless, and I'm going to savor
Yeah,
that because
time.
time is more important. And so for me, it is time with my children when I get to be with them because they're afar. You get to have time with your children, and with children all throughout India, you get to support their growth. And that there's so much honor in that, and so much there's a different type of freedom, that doesn't come, money can't give you that. You know what I mean? Money can give you things, but it can't give you that. So
I want to ask you, Elizabeth, don't you think with more of flexibility to our front, we get more innovative and wise? Like if you were in a rut, if we were in a rut just running, updating our LinkedIn profiles from this position to that position and getting better positions, all we were doing is, glorifying our positions. Okay, great. I respect that. But the creativity, Elizabeth, the innovation that comes with silence doesn't come in noise.
so that's beautiful. And you asked the question, and I would say yes. I think it's, is it 5 years? It'll be 5 years in April 2nd, that I started meditating twice a day.
Wow.
And so I have my silent time. I journal every morning. I do my breathing
Wow.
exercises based on the wonderful Thich Nhat Hanh. I have a certain methodology. The point that I'm saying is I spend a lot of time in silence, and that is when my creativity, my innovation, I can be meditating and coming up with the next whatever. It just comes to me.
Fact.
So yes, I think
Oh
that.
my God, you're saying
So
precisely. I mean, you're putting a stamp to what I think, and that's the beauty of this conversation. Sometimes you're just thinking, but if there's another woman, a woman that you
mm,
believe is wise, says the same thing, you're like, okay, you're doing right, Pooja, you're doing right.
Oh, Pooja, you're doing amazing. And I think the thing that's, I want to just say this. Here we are, it's Women's History Month, and you're making history. You are educating and teaching the next generation of children from India to learn the love of language and the language of love. And I think that
Yeah.
that's so spectacular. And I'm in awe and in admiration of you, and such gratitude for having this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You just make me feel on cloud nine on a Saturday evening. And, I mean, keep doing that to all the women. Keep showing your palms to all the women, because that in India is considered as a blessing.
Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. If you haven't already, please give us a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn so you can hear from more amazing women. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood LLC and Elizabeth Elfenbein, produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Zach Slaff, and edited by Zach Slaff. The music is by Ayla Schaefer, her song, Rose.